And again, coming back to my next question, right? So now we have identified the problem. Now we have identified the reasons why this happened after such a flourishing expansion, in both in terms of the territory as well as the research. And in fact, if I am not wrong, if I say that at that point of time, Muslims were the superpowers of the time, and that not only ruled the larger parts of the world, but also provided everything in terms of technology, research, medicine, and all walks of life. So they were excellent. So it's very unfortunate that we are going through the decline right now. But let me move on to my next question to try to find a solution for this problem. And you recommended in one of your writings that there has to be an integrated system of education, right? That balances both science and Islamic ethics. So what would such a model look like in practice? And have you seen any model or envision anything, or has any country attempted to apply it, or that has not done yet?
The countries like maybe Malaya,
Malaysia?
Turkey, and some are trying to apply that, but their resources are limited comparing to the Arabian countries, Gulf countries. So the countries who have lot more money, they are not applying. They are not applying. Second very important thing is that when Quran revealed the first verse, then I said 800 verse. Muslims in they were jahil, but they said God is saying something because they study Quran. We are not studying Quran. We are rituals. That's all we are doing. We're following it, what somebody else said. So we don't use our own mind. How many people actually know the Quran has 800 verses to, promote this? How many people wonder about why first verse is revealed like that? Because God knows what happens to the Christians. So this is where I'm saying we become followers of rituals. We don't study Quran. Therefore, unless you have integrated system where Quran, Islamic studies and science combine, science will give you the survivors. You will come out of dependence. Islam give you the moral characters and how to build a just society. So that combination is, I don't see that in any Muslim country at all. And that's the reason I feel that we need to pay attention. How many institutes here, even in Dallas, there are 4 or 5 who teach Islamic studies. Have you ever heard them a word about that we had produced a great scientist, Ibn Sina? They just don't agree with their existence. Have you ever heard the word about any of the scientists which mentioned who did such marvelous for the humanity in the masjid? Why?
Because they believe the existence of their institutions is solely to focus on the religious aspect.
That's what the Nizam ul Mulk said. Exactly, that's what he said. That's what we are following. That's what we put in dark ages. And why not? Have you ever heard what I just said? Look, we want you to be the good Muslim, but you want to be a good scientist so that you serve humanity. Now, the science should be developed to make life comfortable, to make advances in health and human services. But is it not Muslims' responsibility or only no?
Unfortunately, we are the recipients in that aspect.
That's the meaning. Now, Amal Salihat would describe in Quran many times. In fact, it is again more than وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ. Those are rituals. They were 5. Amal Salihat was, what is Amal Salihat? I think treating, I didn't even mention the advances medicine have made in 200 years. The surgery, the MRI, I mean, people's life has extended. Transplant of every organ except the brain we can do.
Exactly.
So that's what I call Amal Salihat. Why don't we teach that? That you have to have Amal Salihat? No. Nobody does that. Have any Islamic school is doing that. It sounds like critical, but I want to be realistic. I want to say that when you talk about mindset, that's what is happening. They thought all our ulamas knows what Islam is, so they blindly follow them.
Right. If I may interrupt and bring on a verse of the Quran, there is a very common word that is recited like Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanatan wa fil
Or
akhirati hasanatan. So some say that in the translation of this ayat
Exactly.
is you're asking the God to give you the benefits or the blessings of this world and the hereafter.
After.
So this world is being asked first, then hereafter.
So we divide between akhirat and dunya, and every time I heard, oh, dunya is very short, you don't have to do anything, just prepare for akhirat. Amale salihat will prepare you for akhirat, but you're not paying attention. So Islam needs a new, what you called scientific and philosophical vigor to become a renaissance in Islam, because there was a renaissance. We need a renaissance, otherwise we will remain backward. And that scientific progress can be transformed into an instrument. Sometimes people get, oh, but science has negative instrument of destruction like nuclear power. That's where the Muslim mind can work. They say, no, that's not good for humanity.
Now, even the nuclear power can be utilized for positive resources.
Exactly. That is where our integrated system, which you talk about, come, where the Muslim mind should influence the politicians. Muslims should first become scientists, then influence the politician. We don't agree misuse of the, even for example artificial intelligence is very good for humanity. I think you will find a lot of, but it can be misused also. And also, if you use too much, then people will get out of jobs. So you have to be integrated system give you a balance.
A very pragmatic approach. I think even the knowledge and how we comprehend will give us a better idea that what part of that knowledge is beneficial and what is not.
Exactly. So I think, thanks to Imam Ghazali, he did wonderful work on showing Muslims about building a character, about showing how Muslims should behave. Although I don't agree some of his decisions he promoted, but I agree what he, that part we should take it, and we should integrate that with the scientific education. For example, luckily, after reintroduction of the science, Muslims reached the highest by 11th century, decline 15th century.
Right.
After 15th century, for 300 years, Muslims were in power because of the military. Ottoman Empire, Europe was frightened of their military, suffer with Mughal Empire. But within 100 years, all the Muslim world, entire Muslim world become colonized. Entire Muslim, from Indonesia to Ottoman Empire, there was nothing which Europeans didn't take it over. Why? Because what happened, Europeans were working on the science from 16 to 18, Muslims were neglected. When they come with the new technology, they couldn't resist. They give up. Now I think what I'm saying is we are not making any effort to gain that kind of a vigor. And if you don't, you will remain dependent and you will have money but no respect. I think Saudis and Gulf people have people have respect for them. No, they know they will listen what we say.
I think, as you kind of very beautifully mentioned, in within 100 years, like the whole, if I would say, from Morocco to almost like Philippines, they were colonized.
Yeah.
Because Europeans were innovating and Muslims were not. And I'm sure there's partly a reason that Muslims were having indifferences and infighting among them. And that's one of the reasons. And I think there is no match in comparison to technology, right? Anyone who has a superiority in technology will lead or will rule the world.
And today the same thing is happening. Or, and Muslim brain, which was utilized in science for betterment of humanity, now it is used by infighting like sectarian violence. I mean, you're going in the mosque and killing Muslims going in the mosque killing Muslims. God says respect the worship prayers of other faith, because we are not spending the mind in the right direction.
Again, it's a very sidelined question, but for a very long period of time, even when I was like in middle and high school growing up in India, the religious scholars, they emphasize more on reading the Quran, not trying to learn by the meaning. And to some extent, it was discouraged to, in fact, read the Quran by meaning or try to understand what it is, because some scholars, they say that Quran can be a misguidance for you if you understand.
Exactly.
And now here we are, we just know how to recite it like a parrot, but we don't understand a word from it, especially the generations like me, if I'm also responsible for that. And I'm more concerned about the next generation that is going to come. Right. So Quran, I feel, is like a treasure of knowledge
It is.
that can guide us, and that is a guidance for us. But we are not utilizing the manual. We are just basically reading as a parrot without understanding.
You put it very concisely. Quran is the treasure. Believe me, I'm not the scholar in the Quran, but each time I read a verse, it talks about humanity, it talks about relationship, it talks about so many things. People don't pay attention. They're killing each other. Blasphemy. Every Quranic verse says, don't kill, just leave the company, educate them. I can write a book on the Quranic verses and what we are doing totally opposite to that. Why? Because people are not understanding. People only listening to somebody else.
Yeah. Coming back to the first verse of the Quran that is revealed, read, right? And the reason why I'm mentioning this is you wrote quite a few books on all these different topics, touch everything in detail. So can you tell us a little bit more about what books you have written, a very brief introduction about the book, and why it's important for our youth and youngsters to read the books, and what message they can get from your books, and what are you trying to convey to the new generation?
There is only 1 minute I talk about Muslim Nobel Prize winners because we should direct all the young students to look towards them, that in spite of all that, they got Nobel Prize. But every one of them did not do their research in their hometown. Abdus Salam did in Cambridge, in Zuel did in chemochemistry in California. Sankar, I met him twice in UTD. He's the Nobel Prize winner from Turkey. He did his work in John Hopkins and UTD here. And Bivandi from Tunisia worked here because back home they have no chance to do that. I do very modest work of inviting the great scientists from today's world, Muslim scientists, for young students to learn from them, like Mansoor Muhyiddin, who did the pig heart transplant. He worked for several years preparing how to prepare the pig's heart to be immunity compatible with humans. It's a very big task. I invited Pagdil, who work on, she's an astrophysicist. But that's what we need to do. That's what IMPM, as you mentioned, Institute of Medieval Post. I have been president for last 20 years, but now I have given to Mr. Putri. My task was to spread the word where the Muslims are. Second thing is, look at these scientists can do that. The previous scientists can do this, so we can all do it. Now, about the books. Let me, the book I have written first is the Muslim Contribution World Civilization, 2005.
So it's a Muslim contributions to the world civilization.
2005. Then the second book I wrote is this.
The Islamic intellectual heritage and its impact on the West.
This book is very important because this tell you that all the work Muslims have done until 11th, 12th century was translated. Once we start losing space, they translated all the work from Arabic to European languages, and that became the foundation for Renaissance. How it, in fact, to be honest, Europeans respected more the Muslim work than Muslims did.
That's so true.
And they learned. There is a department of philosophy named Averroes Ibn Rushd department in Paris. There is a Ibn Khaldun who has such a great respect in the Western world for his basic theories on sociology. I think they have a lot of respect, and because of their translation in-depth study, they accepted what Muslims have done, so they followed. We neglecting that. This is the book, last book I wrote. is the rise and fall.
The rise and fall of Muslim
Which
civilization.
everything which I have spoken today in this book about why there was a decline. What can we do? What the Gulf countries with large resources are not doing.